Hello and welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the future of sales leadership in the data-driven era. I am Janice B. Gordon with my wonderful guest. Let me just bring this up to the screens. Hello there, Jeremy, my wonderful Dr. Jeremy Noad, and myself, Janice B. Gordon, will be discussing the topic of today. So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce to one person for me that embodies sales leadership. Co-author of Selling Professionally, a guide to becoming world-class sales executive. Dr. Jeremy Noad is the Global Director and Growth Productivity of Lind and has a long tenure of leadership roles in various roles. Now, Jeremy and I share the honour of being fellows of the Institute of Sales Professionals. Now, for the guests here today, we do want to hear from you. I know there's lots that will follow us on the recording, but please do post your comments here, and we will certainly make sure that you come up. Either I'll post your actual comments and we'll answer them here live on the stream. So make sure you do that. So let's get into the discussion here. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Janice. Thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it. It's a big intro. I'll try and live up to it.
You better. I've set the bar really high.
I know.
Okay, so Jeremy, there's one thing I'm particularly interested in, and that's the term data lake. Has been around for a while, and now we're talking about sales data ecosystem. So tell me more about that.
So I think it's conceptually, I think the world changed a little bit in, what was it, October 2023, when ChatGPT suddenly appeared. And we saw a great number of, and some great innovation in terms of technology based on AI developing to fix certain things. But when we come at it from two different places, people have spent this time building data lakes, and data lakes, quite simply, a massive place of all your transactional data, possibly all the data you have inside your organization. And a lot of what they use it for is passive. It is looking back. It's what has happened and how we can pull, a view of our trading and maybe a little bit of a forecast from these things, and perhaps do other things with it. But in reality, we have our CRM, and in our CRM systems, plenty of them about, but the CRM systems, we have some insights around customer activities. We might be doing things around voice of the customer. How do we sort of introduce that? And so when we're thinking about this sort of data lake versus data ecosystem, we've got to get to a point of saying, what do we want this data for? Because data is becoming more and more important every day. I think we've sort of been saying this for sort of 10, 15 years about data being a brilliant resource. But a lot of it is sort of, we have a report, we have a dashboard, it tells us how we've done. And a little bit, maybe we have some pipeline, which we're highly confident with, might tell us what we might be expecting. But it doesn't sort of give us the insights. And the insights we're looking for as salespeople are the actionable insights. And so we've got to blend this sort of the transactional data that we have, the historical data in CRM, with the voice of the customer and any insights. And when we think about it and build on the sales tool ecosystem, and a lot of people are looking at this sort of information around marketing content, and we sort of have these tools available, and some very good ones about when to give content to the customer, tailoring that content, and even seeing what content's being read and how long and everything else like that. if you take a step back with that, generally speaking, that goes to the marketing team. How do we sort of let the salesperson know that this content is appropriate at this stage of the conversation? Is it something that resonates with the customer? How does that resonate with the customer? How do we bring that together with the transactional and the CRM activities and tasks to bring us to a place where we can sort of forecast and advise the salesperson on the next action they should take? Is it sort of broaden the stakeholders? Is it to understand some more, ask better questions? And so they're sort of having an ecosystem approach rather than just saying, yay, we've got a data lake. We need to sort of say, okay, we have multiple sources of data, and how can we, in this sort of modern AI instance we're at, make it more actionable, more qualitative, so we can serve our customers and our prospective customers better?
I think it's interesting. It made me think of so many things when you were talking. And there's one thing in the way that we're catching up as humans with technology, but also technology is catching up with where we really want to be. Mm-hmm. It's not quite there yet. We're not quite integrated and connected. We've talked about alignment quite a lot previously in terms of aligning sales, marketing, customer success, or product. But actually, the technology will resolve a lot of the problems and the way that we're kind of wrestling what we're doing now. I was just reading about AI agent to AI agent, the integration where the agents will be doing a lot of that mundane task, but they will even initiate it, not just and complete it, so that there'll be a point where humans won't have to be involved at all because they're initiating and learning AI agent to AI agent across very different platforms. It's not integrated. We can't do that now. But it seems that much of our problem solving, we know it's going to be solved. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it is just a matter of time. And I think the AI piece is interesting because most recently, you see a lot of these sorts of action person figures, images being created and things like that. And
have you done yours, Jeremy?
No, I haven't done mine. It's not my way. I still read books and things like that. Yeah. But I think it's about what AI is doing for us. And I saw a great little story, and I'll probably get it slightly wrong, but it was somebody saying that, we've got AI and it can help me write a proposal, it can help me track my leads, and it can help me do this. What it does is it's freeing up my time by taking away the things I enjoy doing. You can't get the AI to do the washing up, but they can follow up the deal for you. And it's like, well, what's it doing for us? And I think that sort of links into this AI to AI piece. And I was looking recently because there's been some chat, and there's a couple of studies, I think one in 2021 by New York University and one by the University of Milan in 23, about this idea of AI procurement. And you go, okay, AI procurement, you think, as a company buying things, you're thinking fantastic. And so I was looking into it and I was thinking about it and I was saying, okay, so the AI procurement, it's a non-human intervention, salesperson to rope AI bot to try and get a deal. And what's it trying to do there is and you go and look at a couple of vendors and they're talking about, oh, we'll get you some cost down, we'll make sure the commercial terms suit you as Mr. Customer. And it just makes, so if you look at it from one side, of your if you're an enterprise, you're thinking, oh, should we look at this because we spend a lot of money buying things in, and customers can spend sort of half of their spend is buying things in so they can do whatever they do to sell to their customers. And it's about looking for the optimal price and the negotiation, and how do we counter that? I mean, we could, and I'm sure there's one available, we could probably have a sales bot. And then it's even more removed where we're just having this sort of robot war between two bots to try and sort of get to a deal. And the value we bring as salespeople is, or should be, around the value that we can create for that customer. And some of that's qualitative, and so these bots can't handle that. And we've got to be able to move the conversation outside the range of the AI procurement bots back into the business people to talk about, the change impact, the cost of inaction, which you would never get through a concept to a bot, total cost of ownership. These sorts of familiar things could be the differentiator in making contact, having these conversations with companies that have gone down this route, to bring the conversation back to the value we create for your business, because every business creates value for the other businesses. Every business exists to serve that customer the best that they can, help them reach their goals, because that builds a sustainable relationship. And so we've got this sort of mini arms race with the AI, sort of what can it do for us, what other people are using, and I don't know whether you call it attack and defense or whatever, but from one side of it to the other. And a lot of executives are thinking about AI and thinking it's going to be a differentiator. And I think it's rapidly turning into a hygiene factor, because everybody's going down that route, and therefore we all need to have the AI information, we know deals and that sort of thing. So I think that's interesting in terms of where we go with some of the sort of need to have this back to the data ecosystem. We need to have the qualitative, humanistic pieces to make sure that we continue to build the relationships with our customers, and not be commoditized, and not be sort of resulting in sort of some bots somewhere are doing some things and we just have to sign a check or sign a contract.
I think this is interesting from a sales leadership point of view, in terms of what are the key skills that we need to stay ahead. And one of them is, obviously, is data fluency. But then you've talked about this kind of humanistic side of it. So, what are those skills that sales leaders themselves, not for their team, but themselves, do they need to stay ahead?
I think they have to stay away. Yeah, there's a piece of staying on top of where it's going, and many of the software vendors do a fabulous job of keeping people informed about the latest improvements that they've done to their things. But more than ever before, a sales leader has to have this forward-looking view, and it's not sort of necessarily that the optimism and the forecast, the pipeline side, the dashboard reports. Less important. We still need to keep score. We still need to make sure we're hitting our objectives. But we've got to think about the forward-looking things, and we've got to think about how we can build a sales organization that can handle the data, both at a superficial level, but at a deeper level. And again, it's applying some of the older concepts around information. So, triangulation, been going hundreds of years. 2 points you can work out. 2 points of where you are on the map, you can work out pretty much where you are. But with all these things about the buyer intent, the pipeline velocity, the deal health, we have to sort of not dumb it down, but we have to build that ability to understand the insights that are being provided to us to make sure we choose the next best action. And therefore, as a salesperson, it's not necessarily about we've talked about different things. We can be servant leaders, helping the people move along. We have examples where people still want to be superheroes and dive in and save the day, and do the deal for everybody. But it's not about that. I think it's about making sure that our people have the ability to do that. And so it might be less about leading in a traditional way. But where I'm thinking, and where some of the research is going, is, okay, if we move it to being a conductor, and I'm not meaning on the bus, I mean, getting the orchestra in harmony, every person in that orchestra is a skilled person. They have a precise roadmap in terms of the musical score in front of them, but you still have a conductor to make sure that they keep on track and make sure that they act when they need to act, hit the drums at the right time. And that sort of orchestration around it is going to be a key skill as we sort of rely more and more on the data, more and more on these sort of software tools, AI, machine learning, whatever it may be, to move our objectives forward, whether that's sales or account management or customer service. And so we've got to think about, okay, if we're going to be a conductor rather than a leader, what do we have to let go? How do we sort of embody the trust values within the team to say, okay, these are the information, this is the data that you need, but what's my mindset in terms of saying, okay, and sort of what's the guardrails? Okay, we're going to have a lot of information, a lot of insights, we're going to have a lot of automated, intelligent coaching through the deal, maybe not through the interface and the interaction, but through the deal. But therefore, what have we got to do to make sure that of all this information that we need to have, we're interpreting it correctly? And so it's the skills around data interpretation and linking that to the human side, so we're still relating to the problems we're trying to fix for the customer. And so, yeah, I think it's about possibly being less into the detail and more on the macro, and trusting the process and making sure and building the capability in our teams to make sure they are comfortable with adopting this technology, accepting and being willing to accept these insights coming through these systems, and see how it goes.
It's interesting. Again, I've got a thousand questions. So what would be the difference? We've got the whether it's CRO, sales leader, they've got so many titles now, growth leader, of the role becoming too big. They're conducting and the orchestra is too big. There's too many moving parts. So that was my one thought. And the other thought is, okay, well, what's the difference between this conductor and the CEO conductor?
Exactly, and things are going to blur. Now, does that mean that our span of control in terms of whether, in a sales leadership position, which covers all the ones you mentioned, because we're great at creating job titles and different roles and responsibilities. But yeah, is it back to, and we had a phase some time ago of chief commercial officers, all things to do with the customer. But it's about specializing still. I think there's still something in terms of building the competencies, knowledge, skills, and behavior around sales and that customer interaction. Now, we might become customer interaction directors rather than, the CID. I just made that one up, but that sounds bad.
I'm sure that will be on the list.
That'll be on the list soon. But it's the interaction. But we have to take a broader look, and obviously, in sales generally we live quarter to quarter, but we need to have a longer term view. And there is some overlap. There's going to be some blurring of lines. But I think this sort of transition period, next sort of 6-7 years, you're still going to have a specialism around sales. And I think you're still going to want these leaders of the function to have a good grounding of what the customers want, how we can serve that customer better, all sorts of technologies. But I do think there's going to be a future state where, the executive team in your organization might shrink because we don't need a C of this, a C of that, a C, excuse me, all these C-suite pieces, because we can do certain tasks automatically. But I do think another reason why I think it is going to continue, and we need to make sure we don't blur the lines between, I don't know, distribution, customer service, marketing, sales, and things like that, because they're specialists. And I think we wrote this book, the ISP. It's about sales professionalism. We'd like to make sure that everybody's sort of accredited, they know what they're doing, because that helps us all in the end. And I think we still have this role as sales leaders to make sure that we're doing the right things. There's a lot of risk involved depending on what you're selling to whom, or should you be selling it at all? So there's lots of things we need to know in the sales. But I think the mission creep from saying, okay, well, the AI is doing the marketing now, therefore you can sort of keep an eye on that and that sort of thing, would be dilutive at this stage. I think we still need to move into it. So I think what we're doing is trying to conduct the functional group in the right direction and leave the CEO to direct the functional organization. So I think each part of an organization will get more effective, more efficient through using AI. That might be down to sort of all the things we're not interested in, which is making sure the deliveries happen at the right place at the right time, and all those sorts of good things that have to happen for us to deliver our promise we've made as sales. But there's going to be AI there. There's going to be opportunities there. But what we also need to do in terms of this sort of back to the data ecosystem is think about the whole of the value chain that we're providing to the customer. So we sell something, we have to fulfill it, whether that's software or tangible products or services. We need as salespeople to understand what's happening in all those stages to make sure that our customers are getting served properly, which is going to help us in terms of customer retention, future sales, and etc. And I think the biggest one on the AI side that the silver bullet at this moment in time, I think, is on sort of upsell, cross-sell, white space analysis, all those sorts of things. They're the topics that sales leaders sort of talk about. So how can we make sure that we're serving our customers fully, looking for opportunities with our existing customer base? Those sorts of things the AI I think can help us with. But I think we need to be able to get that insight into the hands of the salespeople so they can have the conversation rather than the AI having the conversation. And so building up the skill set around accepting, and that's going to be a massive change management thing. I've been doing this quite some time. Others have. We have this sort of instinctive or intrinsic knowledge built over time about what's right and how things will work, and we've got to let go of that. As a sales leader, as a salesperson, we've got to let go a little bit to get the AI and the machine learning and all this insights into our hearts, so we can take it forward. So
I think with anything new, there's always an element of resistance, and I think the longer the tenure, not always the case, because it depends on whether you more of a fixed or growth mindset. But there's always going to be a certain element of resistance and a fear that too much is going to change. We've got to be cautious and very much protecting your own kind of like knowledge area. But I'm still kind of going back to, is this role getting too big, too much to manage? Because I feel there's almost two different mindsets. There's all of the data fluency and knowledge, and there's so much more data that you've got to not only be able to enable yourself with and your role, but also your team as well.
Yeah.
But the human aspect is almost becoming more important, not less important, and that's very different, sides of the brain, isn't it?
Yeah, it's different sides of the brain, and it comes. The concept. They obviously call it the span of control. What's a good number to have in a sales team and per manager, and then up the hierarchy depending how big your organization is. And effectively, the finance directors might think, oh, we could move it to 10 instead of 6. And I can't say what's a good number for each individual industry. There's plenty of studies about it, and all these sorts of years of academic studies basically all come back to it depends. So not too helpful. But in an ideal world, I would see no change in the salespeople to sales leader ratios, because we have to do the data side of it, because we have to do the triangulation, and we have to make sure that we're moving more. We're definitely not moving towards 2001: Space Odyssey. sort of AI. We don't want them that blindly following what's being said. So I think that the ratio would be staying the same. There will be pressure to say, oh, okay, all this automation, we should be able to, and the fact we have Zoom and Teams and video things, we should have capacity to lead bigger teams. And I'd say what we want to do is lead teams better. Focus on the humanity side of it, focus on the soft skills, making sure that everybody is confident with the data. Because if they're confident with the data, they can be confident with their customers and prospects. If they're not, then it's like, again, another sketch. I can't remember what it is, but computer says no. We won't go and pursue that opportunity because the computer says no. Whereas, no, we need to say that, if you say we've got a relationship between the sales leader and the salesperson, it's now become a threesome. It's the salesperson, the sales leader, and the data. And we both have to have that common knowledge around the data. The data is, and how we use that data and the tools we use to extract the insights and the actions is the third person in the relationship. It's the third person in the relationship between the sales leader and the salesperson. It's the third person in the relationship between the salesperson and the customer. And I think we've got to accept, might be a bad analogy, but that sort of analogy to say, actually, this is how we need to go forward. We need to go forward and say we are consciously partnering with the data and the tools and the systems and the wonderful solutions that the vendors are providing in this space, to say, okay, we have to trust it. Therefore, we have to have a relationship with it, and we have to keep it close to make sure it's helping us. But it's whichever way. There's now three elements to any sort of business relationship in sales.
Do you know what? I actually think that's a really good visual to have. And what is the key thing that's changing the relationship for sales leadership? And it's actually about allowing the space for that third person, which is the data, that's going to enable the other two elements that we're used to: the leadership, the command, the control, the conductor, and the team. But the other element, the other person in the room, it's like we always used to say the customer's always got a seat at the table, the customer's in the room, but the other is the data. And whether that is through the ecosystem, whether that is through the AI agent to AI agent, but each one of the two elements, the leader, the team, needs to be able to communicate really well and have a conversation with that third person. And I love that kind of idea of the third person is now in the room, and it's the data person.
That's it.
See, well, we've got a conclusion there.
There we go.
Look at that. I'm going to remind everyone of the next live session that we have got. Just go on to my LinkedIn channel. It hasn't posted there for some reason, so I might have to reload it. But it's the 20th of May when we'll be talking about mapping the GTM execution to the CEO vision. And we spoke about the CEO and the changing. It seems that one of the key things, we never get enough time to talk about everything, but one of the key things that you implied was going to change is the C-suite will get smaller. Whereas actually the data has shown us it's got larger. It's gone from typical 8 to about 11. But actually, it's quite interesting. Your view is that's going to get smaller, but the team, the size of the team and the ratio to lead in the revenue area is going to remain the same. So all of the people that are fearful about their jobs because AI, well, Dr. Jeremy Noad has said nothing's going to change. You can relax.
Nothing. I think I probably said nothing should change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a people thing. I don't sort of disagree. But it wouldn't surprise me if we've got CIOs and CAIOs or something like that now. People are focusing on it. They want to give it the highest profile. but I think as it becomes integrated, we will shrink these sorts of decision-making groups back down to it. But yeah, I genuinely believe that whether we have forward-looking companies running sales organizations, they will recognize that we could do more with better rather than trying to do the same with less.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it presents a huge opportunity for more with better.
Brilliant. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience on this live, Jeremy. It's been great fun. And yeah, thank you to the audience as well. And please, even if you listen to the recording, do post your questions. I always go back in and direct people. But anyone, please make sure that you connect with Jeremy on LinkedIn, and you can ask him questions directly as well. So thank you so much for being a guest on the live session, Jeremy.
Thank you very much.